introduce our guest speaker today. I'm sure most of you know who Mr. Salatin is from Palatka in Virginia. And we had a great time with him today. I'm so glad he came and took the time out to spend with us in our little farm. So anyways, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Joel, and he's going to answer questions when he gets done.
In 2002, the General Accounting Office, the Congressional General Accounting Office, after a series of very embarrassing recalls in the U.S. food system, charged the General Accounting Office with a foodborne epidemic investigation to research why we were having foodborne epidemics, foodborne pathogen or bacterial epidemics, and what the cause was. And of course, this is a nonpartisan committee. They just work for the for Congress. And so they spent several months doing this research and released a report called the the foodborne bacteria whatever study. And they they identified 5 risks in America's food system. 5 risks. Vulnerabilities, they called them. The first one, after like 5 pages, we have the most abundant food system in the world. We have all blah, 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 all this. Then they got down to the nitty-gritty and said, here are the 5 vulnerabilities of our system. Why we're having E. coli, Campylobacter, Listeria, all this stuff. 4 things. Number 1. Concentrated animal production facilities, like Tyson's and Smithfield hog factories and all that. Single species, concentrated large animal production facilities. Number 2 was centralized processing facilities, like great big slaughterhouses, great big canneries, great big packaging and processing places. Number 3, long-distance transportation. The average morsel of food in America goes 1,500 miles between farm and fork. It's never been tried before in history. And number 4, subtherapeutic feeding of antibiotics to animals that make mutated surviving bugs that are more virulent than the old historically normal strains. So they're more deadly. They're more deadly to us. Now, actually, I don't have much faith in the government, but this was one report that came out that just about hit the nail on the head. Centralized production, centralized processing, long-distance transportation, and subtherapeutic feeding of antibiotics, especially in CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. Now, wouldn't you think, that was 2002, that's been 10 years ago. Now, wouldn't you think that with all the brains around D.C., with all of the credentialed academic strength inside the Beltway, wouldn't you think, wow, some people are shaking their heads, wouldn't you think that in 10 years somebody would have figured out, well, if that's the vulnerability, if those are the risk areas, well, why don't we make a food system that's the opposite of those? Is this hard to get through? So we're going to come under this tent here because, see, I have a lot of faith in the brain power of who's assembled under this tent. And I think that if we really put our heads together and concentrate on this, we'll be able to think up what would be the opposite of these 4 food pathogen vulnerabilities. Let's try real hard. Okay, let's think real hard. All right, number 1 is centralized production places. Let's see, what would be the opposite of that? Sounds like smaller family farms, doesn't it? Yeah, amazing. With diversity and multi-speciation even, imagine that. Well, we did pretty good on number 1. Let's go to number 2. What about centralized processing facilities? Let's see. What would that possibly be? That sounds like community canneries, on-farm processing, neighborhood community-based processing, maybe using church kitchens, and maybe even our own home kitchens. Can you imagine that? Number 3, long distance. This is the hard one. This is really the hard one. Long distance transportation. This is tough. Can anybody imagine what the opposite of that would be?
How about right on the farm?
Sounds like local, doesn't it? And finally, the 4th one, subtherapeutic feeding of antibiotics. Let's see. What would be the opposite of that? What if we raised these animals in a way that they didn't get sick? Now let's think about what that would look like. Because see, on our farm, when we have a sick animal, we don't just assume when we have a sick animal, oh, apparently that animal is pharmaceutically deprived. I mean, that's what the industry thinks. Anytime there's a sickness, oh, we're not using enough drugs. See, we're going back to the same old debate between 2 Frenchmen back in the mid-1800s. One was named Antoine Béchamp, and the other one is far more famous, and his name was Louis Pasteur. And Louis Pasteur was looking in his microscope, and he saw these little squiggly things all running around there, and he says, "There's the enemy. We got to kill them before they kill us." And he advanced the germ theory, and it was all about we're victims. We're victims of this conspiratorial, world of beings out here that's out to get us. So we have to sterilize everything. And of course, he didn't know about irradiation yet, but that's the next permutation. We've got to irradiate everything, and we've got to sterilize. We've got to kill all these bugs. Well, there was a contemporary of his, another Frenchman, named Antoine Béchamp, who said, "Oh, comptoir." Actually, yes, there are bugs out there, but what allows them to get me? It's the terrain. It's the terrain that is either immunologically functioning or immunologically dysfunctioning. And he advanced the terrain theory, which of course is the basis of all Eastern-type medicine, from acupuncture to chiropractic. I mean, hygiene, sanitation, enough sleep, the whole person, body, mind, soul, what are you stressed about? I mean, he started asking questions like that. Imagine that, And we're still having this fundamental debate today. Now, if we had a committee here, let's say Congress appointed a committee right here from this tent, 5 people. We're going to have a committee, and we're going to create a pathogen-friendly food system. We want all the sickness and pathogens we can imagine. All right? Let's see. What would we do? Well, first of all, we would have farms that only have one species. I mean, you don't want to confuse the pathogens, right? I mean, you want them to just have one host, right? We don't want to confuse them. We want the ones that thrive in chicken poop to never find rabbit poop or cow poop. I mean, we want them to just be one species. And then we're going to take that species and we're going to put it real close together so the pathogens don't have to try to survive when they're jumping from one person to the next person. We're going to put these people real close together, see, and so they can just go from one person to another. I hope y'all are together. I mean, we don't want to make those pathogens work hard to stay alive between hosts, right? We're going to put them all together real close. Then, let's put them all in a house where they don't have any sunshine. No fresh air, no sunshine, where you know, they don't wear diapers and they don't have toilets and they're not potty trained, so they're just pooping out here, you know, peeing and all this stuff. And at this real high number here, we're gonna confine them in a house. No sunshine. I mean, sunshine's nature's basic sanitizer, right? So we're gonna block out the sun, and we're gonna get these animals to breathe in fecal particulate. You know, and that fecal particulate is extremely coarse. And it's going to come into their tender mucous membranes and like sandpaper, create abrasions and lesions in their mucous membranes, their respiratory tracts. So you can have nice big bloody open wounds in the trachea and down into the lungs, so that all the E. coli and the Campylobacter can go right into the bloodstream, right into the oviduct, right into the egg. Isn't that cool? Yeah, we're getting somewhere now. Now, let's make sure that they can't get any exercise. I mean, exercise is kind of, you know, it's a good thing, right? So we're going to make sure that they're locked up so tightly together that nobody can run or walk or do any exercise. So they're all just, you know, slovenly couch potatoes. And then we're going to feed them food that is simply high starch, low nutrition, and make sure that it's artificial food, artificially fertilized, full of pesticides and chemicals to overrun the time, you know, their liver and their kidneys that are the body's strainers. What have I just described? Modern American agriculture. Okay? You could not, if you created a committee to invent a pathogenic system, you could not conceive, you could not create a more pathogen-friendly system than we have. And so, what we're trying to create, what we want to create in our food system, is a terrain in which this pathogenicity doesn't happen, where they get fresh air, sunshine, exercise, don't breathe fecal particulate, where there's a diversity of species, and there is the natural symbiotic, synergistic, relational complexity that creates ecological balance in nature. And suddenly when you do that, all sorts of things start to fall into place. Guess what? You know, grass-fed beef, for example, instead of grain-fed beef, has 300% more riboflavin in it. Well, what's the importance of riboflavin? Riboflavin is the nerve vitamin. Wonder why kids are bouncing off the walls and road rage and everything else? There's no riboflavin in the meat. Grass-finished beef has conjugated linoleic acid, known as CLA. Conjugated linoleic acid. Conjugated linoleic acid is looks like a packing peanut, and it provides the bounce, the suppleness for the synapses of the nerve endings. Remember, go back to your 10th grade biology class. Remember those synapses where the nerve spark jumps across the spaces, okay, like little sparks, and it's like a little whip that jumps. Well, as you age, those whips become less and less flexible. That's why as you age, I can't remember anything anymore. You walk slower, your balance is off, and as you age, you don't have you're not as quick reacting. That's why you don't see any F-16 pilots over about 45 years old. Your reflexes drop off, right? Okay. CLA is also the number one. And so CLA helps that flexibility. CLA is also the number one anti-carcinogen in the world. It always bothered epidemiologists for several years when they studied, colon cancer. And in Argentina, where the per capita consumption of red meat is twice what it is in the U.S. I mean, in Argentina, the per capita consumption of red meat is 160 pounds a year. In the U.S., it's less than 70. I mean, we're talking, remember, 160 pounds a year, that's half a pound a day. Every day of red meat. Can you imagine? Oh, bring it on. But half a pound a day, but their colon cancer rate is half what it is in the U.S. How can this be? I thought red meat created colon cancer. What's the difference? The difference is that in Argentina, the beef is grass-finished and has high levels of conjugated linoleic acid. It only takes 14 days of grain feeding an herbivore to chase all the CLA out of their body. So, there are ways that we can affect the immunological terrain of animals and ourselves. When I get sick, my first reaction is, oh, apparently I haven't taken enough drugs. My first reaction is, what did I do to my terrain? Now, it can be something as simple as being torn up about a high-stress situation, a divorce, a death, a grief, a loss of a job, losing a spelling bee, whatever. I mean, it can be, getting cut from the local theatrical production. You had your mind set on playing such and such a part, and that guy over there got it. So it can be stress. It can be dietary. It can be not enough sleep. It can be not enough drinking water. The point is, though, that unless and until we begin realizing that our wellness and health is ultimately up to us, we're not going to be a healthy culture. We have to appreciate, ultimately, we are not victims. We create the terrain in which we live. All right? Now, I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about price and time. Because when I start talking about food and local food and buying local food, you can just feel the resistance in our hurried, harried soccer mom culture. I don't have time. I don't have the money. This stuff's more expensive. So I want to address a couple of those things. Let's talk about price first. Price of high quality food. I mean, we have the cheapest food in the history of the world and the highest per capita health care costs. 30 years ago, health care was 9% of our individual per capita income, and food was 18%. Today, food is 9%, health care is 18%. Is it possible those numbers are related? I mean, is that even possible? I just told you about CLA, I told you about riboflavin. I mean, and you can go through our eggs. Our eggs, we've had many high cholesterol people in their 90s. Coast Guard people, that almost get kicked out of the Coast Guard for high cholesterol. They start eating half a dozen of our eggs a day. Suddenly, in 2 weeks, their cholesterol's normal for the first time in 30 years. How do you explain that? Because food is different. Our eggs, for example, average 1,100 micrograms of folic acid per egg. A supermarket egg averages 46. It's not the same food. It's not the same stuff. Okay? And so, one justification for higher prices, it is better. I mean, look, if we took half the money we spent on health care and spent that on our food, would we ultimately have a better quality of life? Yes. Yes! Of course we would. Who would rather stay well than have a hospital to go to because your food made you sick? Prevention is always more fun than remediation. Always. Okay? But now I want to shift gears just a little bit and ask a question. We're going to talk about all the people that aren't here. People out there. People, those people out there. Okay? You can't see them, but they're out there. They're out there. Now, I want you to tell me something. To those people out there, do they spend money on anything that's not necessary? Can anybody, we're going to have a little brainstorm here, and you know, I got to be careful when I do this on college campuses. You know, last time I did this on a college campus, I asked this question, you know, can anybody tell me, you know, what people spend money on that's not necessary? And one kid yelled out, underwear! No. So can anybody tell me here anything that those people out there, those people, not us by any means, those people, that they spend money on that's not necessary? Starbucks. Cable TV. Xbox. Did somebody say that under 12 years old? Man, oh man, give that boy a star. Give him a fruitcake. Okay, what else? I'm sorry. Manicures. Oh, now there's a beautiful lady saying manicures, but don't say pedicures. Bling. Bling, yeah, just bling. Everything made in China. That's a good one, yeah, just whatever. Okay, what else? Beer. Yeah. It's all beer. Soda. McDonald's. DiGiorno's frozen pizza. How about $100 designer jeans with holes already in the knee? Lottery tickets. Super Bowl tickets. Are you with me? Yeah. You know, when you start looking, I mean, who needs Hollywood? I mean, I find it amazing. You know, when I read Little House on the Prairie books, and I look at their entertainment, what gave them pleasure. I mean, can you imagine coming together as a community out here and just having 10 people that stand up and do little poetry recitations or little theater things, just for fun, just for entertainment, and the community comes out to watch it and leaves their television behind? Can you imagine? Can you imagine them coming together, having a community spelling bee for fun? How about a couple of original little short stories that the author reads for the community? You know, but when I look at pleasure, you know, it's just amazing to me that people don't associate planting a tomato seed and watching the miracle of the tomato plant grow and then eating the tomato off of it as pleasure compared to being the top points winner on Angry Birds. You know, there's an amazing statistic. Did you know that right now the average American male between the age of 25 and 35, American male, between 25 and 35 spends 20 hours a week playing video games. I mean, that's enough to start a side business. I mean, these aren't high school students, and these aren't retirees. These are American males, supposedly in their most, you know, virulent, vibrant, masculine, macho time of life. 20 hours a week playing video. Are we that bored? Are we really that bored? Okay. I mean, do we even have to buy them? So the point is, when you start adding up all of the things that we spend money on that are unnecessary, it's laughable. It's laughable that people who don't bat an eye paying for the country club membership go into apoplectic seizures at the thought of paying an extra 50 cents a pound for a good chicken in the course of the year, so they pay $100 a year more for chicken. In the big scheme of things, that's a couple theater tickets. Okay? And so So our pricing really does just reflect our value. And the next thing is, the way to get the price down is to buy unprocessed. Which now that brings us toward the time thing. You know, processed food's expensive. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie Food Inc. Food Inc. Yeah, okay. In my view, the weak part of that movie, the weakest part of that movie, and I like the movie, I'm not trying to diss the movie, but I'm saying the weakest part is the family that goes to Burger King and then says they can't afford decent food.
I agree.
I know what that Burger King meal costs. When that boy came out and he's eating the big fries and the hamburger and the great big, 5-gallon soda pop. I know what that costs. It costs right at $10. Today, right now, you can come to our farm and buy the world-class 5-star grass-finished ground beef, 2 pounds of it for $10. So what we're doing is, we're not spending money on nutrition. We're spending money, we're subcontracting out the convenience. Now that brings us to time. Well, I don't have time to be in the kitchen. I mean, we're a culture that has never spent more time and money remodeling and techno-sexy gadgetizing our kitchens and been more lost as to where they are. I mean, we put all this money in them and buy all these gadgets and Cuisinarts and Fry Babies and all this cool stuff, and then we're, I can't find it. If you buy unprocessed food and use your kitchen to prepare, package, and preserve it, the cost savings, believe me, you can beat the cost of processed food. I mean regular, just Walmart processed fecal soup food. You can beat the cost of that hands down if you prepare it, preserve it, and package it. Well, how do you get the time to do it? By using the techno-gadgetry. What can be quicker than throwing a pork chop, some carrots, and some potatoes and onions in a slow cooker on your way out the door to work and coming home and that thing just